We got Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
It's good to be back. Obviously excited about being back at Ben Hill Griffin and Steve Spurrier Field. You know, I think it's important for our team to buy into the concept of preparation and how that can separate us from the opponent. And the whole idea of practice, what the game requires, you know, not only from the players, but from the staff. And when you get to in season, it's important that we understand the great teams, the championship teams, continue to improve each week because of the practice environment and the approach to the routine and how we prepare. In general, it's time to go. And, you know, it's important our veterans lead the way. Let's see how good this group can be.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. The 2025 season is ready to go, Will Miles, right here on Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. It is time. It is time. Hey, one of the episodes we most look forward to all year. I've been asked about it, and we always do it the Monday before the first game, where we're going to do our predictions and over-unders and superlatives there. But you just heard from Billy Napier today, kicking off game week with that press conference. And, yeah, as he says, it's ready to go. We're ready to go, Will. And it is LIU. So not much to get excited about for the opponent. But we do get excited because we get to see that team running out of the tunnel in the swamp Saturday night and play the first game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Napier, I would have told you, like, living up here in Philly, I'm like, practice. He's talking about practice? Like, that's what I was thinking while he was talking there.
He threw the championship word out there again.
Well, and, you know, that tells you that he feels pretty good about the team.
Yep.
But I will also say that I am part of my optimism for the season comes from the fact that we got Long Island coming to town. And they get the ability to ease into this season, you know, like an old man in a bath, not like, you know, immediately it's not like immediately under fire, like they're playing Miami or Utah or something like that. And so a little bit different feel to this season for Napier. Yeah. But look, I mean, they should be 2-0 in a couple of weeks heading into Baton Rouge. And what we feel about that game in Baton Rouge, obviously, some of that'll be what we see when LSU takes on Clemson. But also some of that is going to be how good Florida has looked and how sharp they've looked in these first couple of games. And, you know, you only get 12, so you don't have that much time. Like, you got to use these as opportunities to work on the things that you need to work on. And so hopefully what we get is a first quarter of DJ Lagway and then 3 quarters of whoever the backup is. And, you know, this is like one of those old Spurrier games where it's like 73 and you're like, oh my God, he's dead. He's dead. Let's stop. He's dead. And, you know, maybe we can get one of those this weekend. One of those old fashioned beatdowns like we've had in the swamp in years past. Man, it should be. I mean, all the images that are coming out of Long Island, I'm like, that's who we're playing Saturday night, really. And granted, you know, no fault of the. I mean, like, you know, FAMU was originally on the schedule. Florida had to scramble and find an opponent. Long Island is now coming to the swamp for this, but this one should be a fun night in the swamp. There should be plenty of fireworks. Hope they got enough fireworks in the end zones when Florida scores, because I think they're going to need them there Saturday. They should need them, but certainly I think that's the way this one's going to be trending. So lots to get into with this episode. We'll get into some of Billy Napier's press conference today before we get into our over-unders, our superlatives, and our predictions a good bit. I mean, I know Will's already got his out there, the preseason magazine, in his magazine, season preview there, the read and reaction preview there. But we'll see if anything's changed for Will, I guess, over the last couple of months from when the magazine came out and he made his prediction for the Gators. But I'll share mine as well. And all that, so plenty to get into. So let's keep it going, Will. But everybody, hit that like button, subscribe. A lot of the live viewers in here right now, I can tell you're excited for the season. We're excited for the season. No, the numbers will be going up. Everybody's interested now. You had your vacations, you had your summer breaks. We're back here now. It's football season. So everybody hit that like button, subscribe right here on Gators Breakdown. Really, really helps us out. And leave those comments as well. So keeping it going, that press conference, Will,
kind of going to the opponent part. Now, he was asked, and he gave the coach speak, of course, that, it's Long Island. We'll focus on the opponent. But also kind of went on to say, quote, I think for us, we're going to be focused on what we do throughout the week. Hey, look, let's be honest. That's what it's about this week. This is about Florida, doing the things you're supposed to do. You do the things you're supposed to do. This is not even going to be much of a contest on Saturday night. And he goes on to say, quote, I think it's just more about the intent of the work, the quality of the work. Probably 30% of the team is new, and then 30% of the organization is new. So we're doing a lot of these things for the first time as a group, and I think it's really important to get off to a good start. Well, we know the start was something that has killed Florida the last couple years on the road at Utah, and then the last year against Miami. So, of course, that's mostly to do with the opponent. That's not the factor here. It is more about Florida doing the things and looking like what we expect you to look like on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're probably not game planning heavily for Long Island. I would expect to see the normal Napier flood routes, running out of the pistol, like not necessarily showing people a lot of the stuff that you would want to show them. Like, you're not going to put a lot on tape for your opponents on this one, right? It's going to be pretty vanilla, pretty standard. But look, pretty vanilla and pretty standard for this team, if you want to be a championship team, still needs to be more than good enough this week, and quite honestly, more than good enough next week too. Florida had a reputation last year, at least being physical in the offensive line, line back. We've talked about it all offseason, and now's their opportunity to shine, right? This is one of those where, Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson should be given quite a bit of an opportunity here to put up some real numbers. And, I expect there to be some deep shots and some fireworks and stuff like that. But realistically, the place where this Florida team on offense wants to establish itself is on the ground. And they want to establish themselves as the physically dominant team. And in a game against Long Island, obviously they should be able to do that. But it all starts with this, right? I mean, you got to be able to execute now, so that you can then build to next week, so that you can then build the week after that. And quite honestly, that running game is probably going to be the thing that we're going to be looking at and saying in a couple of weeks. That'll translate when they go on the road in these big games in the SEC, or at least we'll say, can it translate when they go on these big road games in the SEC? But I think that's where Florida wants to hang its hat, is they want to be a physical team up front. And so you got to start somewhere, and this is where you start. And, for all the fireworks and all the Lagway talk and all that sort of stuff, at the end of the day, if they can be the more physical team along with having better quarterback play, that's where the championship run's going to come from.
Yeah, I think early on in this game in particular, there might be, a good mix of play calling, run, pass, but then as this game goes on, I think they're just going to I wouldn't be surprised if the percentage in the second half is 80% run. Go, get out of there. Of course, you want some young receivers to get a shot and chance to, and see your second string quarterbacks with Bailey and Harrison and Tramel Jones come in and throw the ball as well. But because maybe down the road you might need them. And of course, we got the news, of course, today that DJ Lagway has been participating 100% in practice. We got the news officially will start versus Long Island. Billy Napier did say, quote, I think he gets better every day. He's having a lot of fun playing football and competing. I think he's smiling a lot more often now. I think he truly enjoys practice and preparing. Just get the opportunity to get better. I think the kid is consumed with improvement, and he knows the value of practice. So he'll get to do that. Yeah, I mean, that's just where this is. I think Lagway first, of course, with all him missing spring and fall, I think you do want to get him some passing reps. I say 4 drives max in this game. That should be enough anyway to get him out of there, and then let the backups come in. And you do want to see them throw the ball. You do want to see the young receivers get a shot and chance as well in catching the ball, and the backup offensive linemen have some pass blocking reps against a different opponent. But it's just kind of with the opponent, it's just do your job and you'll be fine. But not much of game planning. But it was interesting when talking about Lagway. Napier was asked, of course, about maybe game plan, and given Lagway's injury history back to the spring and the fall, do you treat him different? Do you try and protect him a bit? And he goes, probably wouldn't say those things publicly. Billy Napier said. But obviously, you're thinking the right way. Quote, I think there's some gamesmanship to that part. There's no question about it. But in general, I don't know we're going to disclose our game plan, but it is what it is at this point. So we'll see number 2. He'll be taking the snaps. Wouldn't expect all that much. Good news that he's going to be there, given all the injury talk. But of course, not too much.
Well, I mean, look, I actually look at this game as sort of a referendum on Billy Napier, not really on DJ Lagway. And I say that because if you look at how Florida played against Samford last year, now obviously that was Lagway's first start, but that's your cupcake. They win that game 45-7. It's an easy win. Lagway looks fantastic, but that game was 14-0 at the half.
Right.
I mean, that was one where it's like, yes, Florida's in control. Yes, Florida should win this game. But it wasn't until they put up 14 in the third quarter and then 17 in the fourth that they really pulled away from a Samford team real early in the year. And, I think that's sort of indicative of what Florida's offense was, even with Lagway at the helm. I mean, from a yards per play perspective, it was great, but it wasn't real consistent. There were a lot of 3-and-outs. There were a lot of turnovers. And there was a lot of stuff that stopped drives along with all the big plays that we're all excited about. So to me, look, if Lagway lasts 4 drives and Florida puts up 28 points, that says something about the development he's had this offseason. And that says something about Billy Napier sort of going for the jugular as opposed to going, well, we'll punt a couple of times in the first quarter, just as we're sort of warming up and look, I mean, I made the old man in a bath joke, but that's kind of Billy Napier. He kind of like ease himself into the game, ease himself into the season. And by the time they'd eased themselves into the first quarter against Miami last year, they were already bleeding. They'd already been hit in the mouth. And so, I think one of the things I said last week kind of got on a rant, but I was talking about how much does Napier, how much does the staff trust the guys that they're bringing back? I mean, we've got a category today where we're looking at like best true freshman and best transfer. I'm like, there isn't anybody. The top 22 guys, none of them are transfers or freshmen.
Right. You're right. That is a tough exercise because this is an established team.
So you have the established team, you have the team that's yours. And so to me, this LIU game is a referendum on Napier and his offense. If they go out and they're up 14-0 at the half and Lagway has to play in the third quarter, I start to get a little worried, not because they're going to lose to LIU, but because it says something about, the scared money don't make money stuff early on was a promise that Napier was going to come in here and let things fly, that he was going to come in and he wasn't going to be risk averse. He wasn't going to be like, yes, he was going to be process oriented, but there was going to be some level of swagger associated with what they were doing. Steve Spurrier doesn't let this team come to the swamp and get less than 70 put on it. Urban Meyer doesn't let this team come to the swamp and have less than 70 put on them. I'm not saying Florida has to put up 70, but this needs to be like a 56, 63, type of offensive performance. And the defense needs to be in the backfield all game long. There has to be an aggression where Florida comes out and just says, not only do we want to win, but we want to embarrass our opponent. We want to impose our will on our opponent because we can. Yeah. Not just because, again, I think that's kind of the difference. If you think about the Samford game last year, Florida won that game. I think Florida was the far superior team, but I didn't look at it and go, oh, Samford doesn't belong on the same field. Like, I think if you want to be a championship team, you come out here against the Sharks and you show that they don't even belong on the same field and you make USF go, oh crap, like look what's coming next week, and sort of set that as the tone. And I think that comes back to Napier. He's talking championship in press conference. He's talking about how excited he is. He's talking about making sure they prepare the right way. He's talking all that sort of stuff. Well, let's see. Are we going to be 3-0 at the end of the first quarter where we're sitting there going, God, again? Or is it going to be 21-0 and we're going, I wonder who the backup quarterback is. And I wonder whether Napier's going to let that guy throw once we actually get there. I mean, at some point we might be like, ease on the gas. We want to see these guys throw a little bit as opposed to just running down the field. There's a difference. There's a tone. And I think I'm interested to see what does the tone look like as Florida goes out there and plays against what should be a significantly inferior opponent.
For sure. I think we'll see it. Not to give too much away, but I think they're just so overmatched. But kind of to your point, like I said, Florida can run the ball 80% the second half and still put up 28, 35. I mean, that's just the kind of opponent I think you're playing here. But like it's, I want to see the backup quarterbacks get in some action and the receivers as well. So, all right, let's hear from Billy Napier one more time before we get into our predictions. Let's hear from Napier on where the team is heading into game one.
Look back at August, how much of what you intended to get done did you get done, would you say?
Yeah, I feel good about it. You know, obviously I think we did a good job developing depth where we needed it. You know, I'm proud of some of the players that kind of surfaced as we were looking for competition to build depth. Now that is ongoing. You know, I would say, you know, some of these positions that we've talked about, I think that the development of the young players, because a lot of these guys haven't played significant roles. You know, maybe they played at the end of the game at certain points throughout last year, but I think those are the players that I think we need to see continue to improve. You know, and that's going to be important for our team. We know in this league the depth will be really, really important. So, you know, you're always coaching your team. You have different capacity in every room, but you got to continue to coach all parts of the team throughout the year. But I do feel good about the progress a lot of those players that we talked about in the very beginning.
Is there an area of the team that you thought stood out better than what you may have expected?
Yeah, I think the edge room, the inside backer room, those are two rooms where I feel good about, you know, what we have. I mean, I think, and then you dig into, you know, I do think that there's great competition for the fourth corner spot. I think there's great competition, you know, kind of who's the fifth inside backer, right? Who are the fifth, sixth safeties? I mean, we're still having the same conversations. You know, I do think Amir Jackson's had a good camp. I think that Jason Zandamella's had a good camp. So those are the players that I'm talking about specifically.
There we go, Will. So a little bit of where Billy Napier sees the team heading into the first game and heading into the season. There's some of the positions that we've talked ad nauseum about and how deep Florida is or who they are looking for to take those steps at those positions. We'll quickly go through that, just kind of, you know, sort of keep the conversation going here. But edge, linebacker, hey, look, we feel good about, but I think both those group with Florida, you know, Tyreek Sapp, George Gums, Jaden Woods, when LJ McCray comes back as well. You know, Cam James, certainly talked about him last week as well. I think Florida just kind of likes what they have there. You heard Billy Napier say it as well. And then I talked about it last night on the Gator panel, but you know, numerous times here as well. I love the linebacker room. You know, Florida going 4 deep with Grayson Howard and Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, Jaden Robinson, any combo of those 4 guys, I think you feel really, really good about. But he did mention, hey, let's find that fifth linebacker. So you got to go to true freshman at that point, Will. When you're looking for a fifth linebacker, it'd be Ty Jackson, Miles Johnson. Look, we should see those guys plenty on Saturday. We should maybe see them against USF as well. So I think, you know, these 2 games coming up are about finding that fifth linebacker. You know, talking about those guys. That fourth cornerback. You know, I think we know who the top 3 are. Devin Moore, Dijon Johnson, Cormani McLean. And then, okay, who's the fourth? Who's the fourth? Are you going Ben Hanks? Are you going the true freshman? Are you going Grimsley? I mean, I think that's a pretty good Billy Napier bringing it up. Lets me know that's still open there. Then the fifth and sixth safeties. Now, when he says that, he throws nickel in there too. So he lists, when he says fifth and sixth safeties, you start with a 4 of Castell and Thornton and Denson and Gates. But who's behind it? Is it Caraway? Is it Lagonze Hayward? Is it Hilton Drake Stubbs? So certainly, I think these first couple of games and these position battles that he certainly has pointed out, there's going to be what we're watching Saturday night and next week versus USF.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team has so much depth coming back that it's, you know, it's
good to hear the numbers 4, 5, and 6.
I mean, seriously, like I can remember a couple years ago where we're talking about. I remember a couple years ago where we're just like talking about. I wonder who the third offensive lineman's going to be off the board. You know, geez, Justin Shorter's a wide receiver. Who's behind him? Or, It's funny. The only place, well, there's two places where I think folks should really pay attention to. I think people pay attention to wide receiver to see what happens there just because there's a lot of turnover there. That's really the only place where most of the guys are new. And if you figure Trey Wilson missed most of last year, really all three guys are new at that position. And then safety, just because what do you really have behind Castell and Thornton? You start getting to the true freshmen pretty soon there, like you said, in Hilton Drake Stubbs, Lagonza Hayward there. And then the third place is quarterback, because if Lagway goes down, holy crap, like who's left? And who do you need to get reps in these two games to make sure that they're ready, right? Is that a battle? Has that already been won? Like, what do we see there? And what do we see from those guys? Because if all you do is bring in a guy like Aiden Warner, he hands the ball off, well, have you really prepared him for when if he has to come in for a series or two against Texas A&M or against Texas or Miami or Ole Miss or whatever? At some point along the way, Lagway's going to get hit, and hopefully he stays in all year long and never misses a snap. But I think the reality is he may not be there for every single snap. And if you need somebody to come in for a series, if you need somebody to come in for a half, do you have the ability to have that guy come in? So, it's interesting that he's talking about the fifth and sixth safety. I'm worried about the second quarterback. Like that's the place where I'm watching on Saturday night to see who comes in, see who differentiates themselves there, see who shows what they can do when the game is actually live. And quite honestly, look, I give Aiden Warner a lot of crap, but it's not as though he didn't play against very good teams when he was in there last year, right? You get thrust into that role. You're the third quarterback all year long. You end up getting relatively minor reps, even going into that Georgia game, I'm sure, because Florida's trying to get DJ Lagway ready to go against the Bulldogs. Then he goes down, and all of a sudden, hey, congratulations, you get to play 3 quarters against Georgia and 4 quarters against Texas. Welcome to the SEC. So even just getting somebody like him some confidence where he goes out there against a team that's significantly inferior to the ones he's faced before. And it's not this, the guys are going at 3 million miles an hour because the best defense in the SEC that I'm playing against right now, going to make things look a lot different. So to me, look, I'm thrilled that they're talking about who's our 9th offensive lineman, who's our 5th safety, who's our 4th cornerback going to be. All that stuff is awesome. But to me, the question is still, who's our second quarterback, and can we give that guy confidence moving into the rest of the season?
Yeah, for sure. And then the two names he pointed out, Amir Jackson at tight end, so certainly somebody I'm looking at anyway, because we joked about it last night on the panel, but hey, will Florida go 5 wide? And I jokingly said, but the tight end's going to be in the mix too. He's going to be one of the 5 wide, but I know that's not what people are saying when 5 wide. You're talking about 5 pure receivers. Well, if there is going to be a tight end there, I'm looking at Amir Jackson, who played wide receiver in high school, who's more that receiving tight end. So if Florida does open it up a bit, I don't know if we'll see it versus Long Island or South Florida, but if Florida does decide to go 4 or 5 wide, is Amir Jackson one of those options? As, he's a tight end, but he's that receiving style of tight end. So could they open it up with an option like him at the spot? And then, of course, Jason Zandamela is at center. He's behind Jake Slaughter. So he's only really playing if there's blowouts or if Slaughter, I don't want to, wish on injury or anything like that, but something would have to happen to Jake Slaughter. But in the games coming up, if Jason Zandamela is getting pointed out by the head coach, when he comes in and Jake Slaughter's on the bench for the rest of the game, I want to see the talk the coach is talking about. And Billy Napier pointing him out kind of just reconfirm some of the stuff that we've heard throughout fall camp. Jason Zandamela was the top-ranked interior offensive lineman 2 recruiting cycles ago. Okay, this is what you expect to hear from a recruiting profile of a guy like that, and learning from Jake Slaughter. So pointing those 2 players out, I'm gonna have my eye on them Saturday night.
Yeah, the Amir Jackson one is interesting because you figure with all the talent that Florida's brought into the wide receiver room, that if you're going to go 4 wide or 5 wide, that you would just bring those guys in, right? Like Aiden Mizell, Tank Hawkins, Vernell Brown, Dallas Wilson, Mike Sturdivant, just go, right? Get out there on the field. And so I think it says something about his ability if they split him out. At the same time, you do get to dictate the defense a little bit. I mean, if you remember those Dan Mullen offenses, LaMichael Pirine and Kyle Pitts used to they would start inside, then they'd split them out wide.
Yeah.
And that would allow them to get Pitts on a linebacker because you had to respect the run and have bigger guys on the field. And now all of a sudden you've got your tight end on a linebacker. So if they can use that to get matchups with somebody like Amir Jackson, then fine. I think Tony Livingston, even in some capacity, can serve in that capacity, considering that he's a guy who's played a lot of basketball. He's somebody who should be able to go up and get it, those sorts of things. So, I mean, Florida wants tight ends who have the ability to go both ways, right? Have the ability to block and then have the ability to go out and get and serve as a receiver if they need it. Even Hayden Hansen is a guy who's got pretty strong straight line speed. I think doesn't necessarily have the wiggle that you might want in, like, think about like guys like Tony Gonzalez and Travis Kelce and stuff like that. Those guys have some wiggle. Hansen doesn't necessarily have that, but straight line speed pretty good. So you could use him in that capacity too. But I don't know. I actually do think if Florida, regardless of what Florida wants to do, I think it would be useful for them to show some stuff that's new.
I like that.
Just so that LSU and those folks have to prepare for it. It doesn't even
That is
like
a delicate balance. Like, what do you show on tape? Do you want? I mean, of course, you'll keep some stuff for a surprise, but to me, that is a delicate balance of when you put stuff out there and make them prepare for it.
Well, I think you show them the stuff you actually don't want to go to in that particular game, right?
Yeah,
if you're going to be 11-12 all year long, or you think you're going to be 11-12 in all the big games because that's the personnel, like, so, one tight end, one running back, two tight ends, one running back. If you think you're going to be in those formations all year long when the rubber really meets the road, well, now go show your 4 wide and 5 wide stuff. Let everybody get excited about it. And then, okay, they've had to prepare for it, but you don't really break it out, right? It's sort of like the whole Tebow jump pass thing, right? Like you don't go run that against LIU, but do you run the quarterback sneak over and over again to show people what's coming? Hell yeah! And then all of a sudden the defense creeps up, and now you've got a deviation off of what you've already shown on film. So that to me would be the kind of stuff, if you're going to put window dressing on things, that you would do it, where you basically go, look, we want to waste their time. We want to, and maybe you run some, like the Amir Jackson part, maybe you just line him up outside, right? And you convince people that when Amir Jackson is in there and you go 5 wide or 4 wide, that he's out there, and maybe then they put a corner in the game. And now you motion him into the backfield as the tight end, and you can run, right? So those sorts of things are the things you can start to think about, perhaps throwing a little bit of misdirection at the defenses to come. But, let's be honest. I think for the most part, people are preparing for the Billy Napier zone blocking offensive line, play action, flood, like that. They're expecting the bread and butter, and I'm not sure that they're going to be preparing for any kind of window dressing or much window dressing that's out there in these first couple of games.
For sure. So, hey, we'll see how much it changes. I think there'll be some wrinkles this year. Maybe more involvement from Russ Callaway, and we'll see what that actually means for Florida. Is it more play calling? Is it more game planning? All that good stuff. But I think there'll be something there that we can see because of Lagway, because of these receivers, that you insert more open concepts of this offense. So, man, Will, 536 strong right now. It is football season. Yeah, Gator Nation's excited, Will. That's the number watching right now. Everybody, thank you so much. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll get into our predictions here. But before we do, the season is here, and it is time to bet with our good friends. They're back for another season at MyBookie. Look, you don't have to worry about betting Florida, Long Island. There ain't no spread out there for that one. With all that's going on and the mismatch that happens there, but you can get in on those future bets. With Florida, a 5.5 point underdog at LSU. Yeah, so if you want to get in on that one, you can, or a 3 point underdog at Miami. You can go ahead and get on those bets right there at mybookie.ag. If you like those odds, go bet on it at MyBookie. What about an over-under of 3.5 conference wins for the Gators? You can get plus 1825 odds for Florida to win the SEC. You can even bet the over-under of 3.5 for the number of SEC teams that will make the college football playoff. Now is the time to get in on these odds if you're a believer in the Gators. MyBookie is your one-stop sports book and casino all in one. There's casino games there at MyBookie as well. So one account, one wallet, bet football all weekend, then hit the slots after dark. No switching apps, no jumping platforms, just straight up action at MyBookie. And if you're new to MyBookie, use our promo code Gators, and your first bet up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back with the bet back bonus. No stress, just a one-time rollover on the return bet, so you're free to reload and keep firing. Sign up at mybookie.ag with promo code Gators and claim your bet back bonus. Will, you ready, my friend?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Over-unders.
Over-unders.
Hopefully, well, we'll see what you predict and what I predict. But based on what I've predicted, hopefully I'm right. Let's put it that way.
For sure. We're going 12 games here, guys. We're just using the regular season games. I think it's about the easiest way to do this. So it's kind of just even across the board. A lot easier to keep up with. So certainly schedule comes into play. You got the Cupcake versus LIU, South Florida to open up the season, and then the schedule ramps up. But here we go, 12 games. Will, let's go. Let's start what we always do, passing touchdowns for the quarterback. 30 passing touchdowns for quarterback DJ Lagway. You go back to Graham Mertz. He had 20 and 11 games in 2023. I went back a little bit, Will. Levi Lewis, of course, at Louisiana under Billy Napier. He had 26 in 2019, and that's the highest for a Napier quarterback. So really close there to 30 for Levi Lewis. So now hopefully there aren't many, the balls that are launched down the field like we saw so many times with Elijah Badger last year and get tackled at the 5-yard line. Hopefully those turn into touchdowns now. So you go with Lagway 12 last season. So we're going over under of 30. I'm going to go over here, Will, and I'm going to say 32 passing touchdowns for DJ Lagway.
So, I mean, this one's tough. This one's right on a number that you can really sort of, based on last year, if you project his production over 450 throws, you end up at 28 touchdowns. But if you look at just his starts, you project to 31. So, in fact, it's like 31 touchdowns and like 16 interceptions. So there's been a lot of talk about the number of interceptions he's thrown and stuff like that. But turns out his overall QB rating was like 156 for the whole year, but it's like 168 in the games that he started. And so one of the people have asked me a lot, why am I excited about Lagway? So there's a bunch of different reasons. One is that he was better in the games that he started than in the games that he played every 3 drives. The other is that he was actually better in SEC play than he was in outside of SEC play.
And injured for most of those, or a couple, majorly injured for a couple of those as well.
And the other thing is that we have LIU, USF, Mississippi State, and Florida State on the schedule. I mean, that's 4 cupcakes to really pad your stats, man. And that last game of the year in
Will
the swamp,
with the zings early. Will with the zings
day,
early.
Florida State, like those a-holes came into the swamp 2 years ago and were chomping it up as they went to their 13-1 season and got left out of the playoff. That's the one where I want the 70 for Billy Napier. Like, put it on in that one. But I think Lagway. The reality is those big plays almost always turn into touchdowns. They didn't last year. We've joked about it a lot. That like in that game against Kentucky, Jaden Ball had 5 touchdowns, but it was because he kept running the ball in from like the 3-yard line every time. And look, that's going to happen a little bit this year.
Yeah.
But again, I haven't projected at 31 if you prorate it, but I think he's going to be better. So I peg him at 38 touchdowns.
All right, so go to MyBookie and go to the Heisman odds. Because if I goes with the 38 passing touchdowns,
just wait till the next category, buddy. Just wait.
Go. We got here wavelength. Good. That's a good wavelength, Will. Because I knew you were going to relate it to this one as well. I will let you go first, my friend. Lagway, 3,200 yards passing. Now, this one was difficult to me. I didn't really, you and I went back a little bit because you caught a mistake that I made. This one, I was tough. It was a little tough on my mind where to go with the number. I came with 32. Came with 3,200.
I am taking such an enormous over on this one.
Oh, wow.
So Lagway, listen to this stat. Lagway averaged 11.1 yards per attempt as a starter last year. 11.1. So first off, that's damn near impossible to replicate at a larger scale. But it was still 145 throws where he averaged 11.1 yards per attempt. So at that pace, he'd be at almost 5,000 yards if he throws 450 times. I don't think he hits that,
Right.
but 3,200 is a joke unless he throws less than 300 balls. Mertz threw 348 in 23, back when he missed a game and a half and broke his collarbone, all that sort of stuff. So if Lagway stays even remotely healthy, if he throws 350 balls, he's going to be over 3,200 yards easy. Because I don't expect him to average less than 10 yards a throw. I mean, he averaged 10 yards a throw for the whole season and was inconsistent on everything underneath. I think his completion percentage goes up 4, 5, 6% this year. And I think we're looking at a guy who's averaging 10.5, 11 yards a throw for the entire season. This is why I'm excited about the year. Because I look at it and go, Lagway wasn't very good underneath and still averaged 11 yards per throw when he started. And some of that is Samford. Some of that is Kentucky. But some of that is he blew the roof off of Georgia's defense too before he got hurt. Some of that is that LSU couldn't stop him when it was critical time. Some of it was Ole Miss couldn't stop him when it was critical time, and some of it is that he actually played pretty poorly against Tulane and still was the bowl game MVP. Like, you look at the stat line, you're like, too many interceptions, all stuff. Still like 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 330 yards, averaged like 10.5 yards an attempt. Like, that's who this guy is. I don't think there's any way, if he stays healthy, he's under 3,200 yards. Like, out of all the things that I would guarantee, like the blood bank guarantee for the gamblers and all that sort of stuff, the MyBookie will blood bank guarantee over 3,200 yards.
Dang, I went under.
Oh my goodness.
And it's not a Lagway thing. And I'm not even down on the offense because of this year. I just think probably relying on more of the run game. At times, I still think I like Ball. I like Jackson. I like this offensive line makeup for the run game. I just think, that still could be true for your point though, because it's still the yards per attempt and the yards per completion that may blow it out of the water. It may not. Florida still may run the ball about like I think they do, and that's why I think it maybe gets held back. But maybe to your point, the yards per attempt and the yards per completion, he gets there anyway.
Well, I mean, think about what he did against Kentucky. Like, just think about it for a second. Like, he threw the ball 14 times for like 246 yards. It's just like ridiculous. I mean, there's stats where you look at it and go, is that even like possible that he could do that? Now, look, I mean, he looked like crap against Tennessee, but still hit a big one at the end there. So the Kentucky stats, 7 of 14 for 259 yards. He averaged 18.5 yards per attempt in that game. But even in games where he struggled a little bit, I mean, look, Georgia 7.8, but he only threw the ball 6 times. But 8.7 yards per attempt against LSU, 10.6 against Ole Miss, 8.7 against Tulane. The only team that kind of held him down was Florida State, and that was one where it looked like everybody was bored. I mean, he had 2 games last year. 2 games, Dave, one against an SEC opponent where he averaged over 18 yards an attempt. Like, that is just ridiculous. And the ability to hit those big, long plays is something that, yes, I see in the comments, people are saying I forgot who our head coach is. No, I didn't. It just turns out that when your quarterback hits like 70% of his long throws, things are going to look nice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, you throw the ball 14 times, but you throw for 255 yards, you're going to get the 3,200 pretty easily. So I respect you for taking under on this one, Dave, but I got a couple of bucks on Lagway winning the Heisman. We need him to.
I'm throwing a flag on myself. You've talked me into it.
Have I now?
You've talked me into it.
Oh, this is going to make for great podcasting at the end of the year when he's at 1,800 yards.
Let me be clear on this. We're not taking injury into account here. Like, we can't forecast that. So, I probably should have said that at the beginning when I said, this is based off of 12 games. For Lagway stats, of course it is. We're thinking he's going to play, a majority of the games, 11, 12 games, all that good stuff. I can't forecast injuries, and we can go all kinds of routes if we did it that way. But yeah, okay. I'm throwing a flag on myself, and I am now going the other way. I will go over with that. Thanks to the excellent analysis of one Will Miles there. So.
Hey, I've convinced somebody. You must have a couple of bucks on Lagway for Heisman too. Shoot, he's gonna have to throw for more than 3,200 yards.
That's true.
It's 265, like right? It's 265 a game. So like the game against LIU, like you need 400 yards in order to have a stinker in there at some point along the way. But I don't see a way that Florida. I know Napier frustrates people, but he's gonna have the best quarterback on the field in every game but one, quite clearly coming into the year. And no, I'm not talking about Garrett Nussmeier being that one. And so,
well, I think you made the point a couple of weeks ago saying when Lagway was the quarterback, the offense was one of the best in the country.
It was a top 5 offense in yards per play when Lagway was out there. Nick Newsom for our preseason magazine went and charted every single play for the entire year, and we sorted it based on Aiden Warner. They averaged like 2.5 yards a play, and then Mertz they averaged like 5.2, 5.3, something like that, and Lagway was like 6.3. It's like, right up there with the Ohio States of the world in terms of the amount of yardage that they were putting up on a per play basis. Now, it was way more inconsistent than you'd like. Right. And so those big plays didn't necessarily come from these sustained drives. Honestly, I think the running game and then Lagway's improvement underneath is only going to make it better, because what it means is you're going to get a couple of third down conversions, and it's going to give you more opportunities to hit those big plays, because once you show you can convert underneath, well, now the defense has to creep up. And man, the minute they showed him any kind of man coverage, he just destroyed it. And the thing is like when you think about the accuracy, one of the things that really impresses me is the ball's out of his hand before the wide receiver even really like gets past the corner, and really before the receiver goes too far past the line of scrimmage. Like these aren't like bombs. For the most part, these aren't bombs that travel 50 yards in the air. It's something where he just throws a perfect touch pass 25 yards downfield, and the guy's basically able to beat the corner on a fade, and it turns into a huge play because he drops it in there like he just placed it there. Again, he's got to keep that going. He's got to be able to do that. But that's one of those things where, 265 a game, I'm willing to say significantly over. I mean, I don't think he's going to get to 5,000 yards. If he does, we're trying to figure out how to like, what kind of NIL we got to put together that buys the guy a yacht. But a good problem to have if that's what we're doing.
Yep, and I have the schematics of the Heisman statue that we already need to be made. We get the 3D scan going as well, and let's get going. So
I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it.
All right, well, let's go to the running game. Average 175 yards rushing a game. So it was 156 yards per game in 12 games a season ago. 202. I go back to the Napier's first year. It was 200 yards a game in Napier's first season with AR at quarterback. You had Montrell and ETN taking most of the snaps of running back as well. And then you had 150 with those same two backs in the 2023 season. So last year I went under with 170 a game, and the Gators went well under that by, like I said, 156. So can they come up with an extra 20 a game? I believe so. This offensive line, you have Jaden Ball returning, Jacoby Jackson returning. This one might seem easy, and I kind of think it is, Will. And the way they ended, running the ball last season as well, as that offensive line just kind of got in their groove, gelled as the season went on, and I think, just kind of found their groove as the season went along. So I'm going over. That won't be massive, I don't think. I don't know if they'll get to, part of that 200 was AR running as well, with Lagway being a better pocket passer, more of a pocket passer, and I think want to protect him in some kind of ways from running. I don't know if you get to that 200 number, but certainly I think they hit the over 175.
Yeah, I'm taking the under on this one. I think it'll probably be close, but history says you need a running quarterback. Mm-hmm. So Emory Jones in 2021 or AR in 22, or a severely limited quarterback. So that's Franks in 2018 to get there. If I look at past Florida teams, that's really what they've needed. Once they really got like competent play at the quarterback position, and, you think about Kyle Trask in 2020 and even in 2019, once they got competent play at the quarterback position, the running game became something that was still important but deprioritized. Florida doesn't have either of those, right? I don't expect I certainly, given what I've already said, expect very competent quarterback play, if not
Yeah.
well above that. And I also think that it's malpractice if Billy Napier exposes DJ Lagway to a bunch of hits by incorporating him in the running game considerably. I understand that's a part of his game. I understand that you don't want to necessarily take away that aspect of what he does. He's a big dude, and there are going to be times he's going to scramble. But if he's not sliding out there when the linebacker's coming up to hit him, if they're running a bunch of read options on anything other than like the goal line where you know the defense is going to sell out and he's going to waltz in on the outside, I like if you want to run the quarterback, bring in Tramel Jones, but don't let DJ Lagway do that. And so I think they're going to struggle to get to 175, not necessarily because
They can't. But
I think there will be a couple of games where Lagway's just going to have to win it.
Yeah.
Right. I think there will be times where
Gotcha.
defenses will, like you think about the Texas game.
Yeah.
That's a game where I think Texas is going to be able to hold Florida down. And it's going to be on Lagway to go win that game. And the question will be, can he do it even when the running game isn't necessarily clicking? Look, if they put up 175 rushing yards a game and they're able to do that, that means they had good days running the ball against Texas and against Georgia, which means we're looking at really significant win numbers, because if they can manhandle Georgia and Texas, well, now,
they ran the ball really well in Georgia in the second half of that game.
They did. And I think that's one of the things that I sort of point to in terms of Florida being a more physical team this year with the offensive line that they bring back. And I understand why you're picking the over. But if I'm going to pick Lagway to throw for 4,000 yards, I probably can't pick a 2,000-yard running back as well. So I'm going to say under when it comes to 175 rushing yards a game.
That was a good point. I was like, you do have to have the balance of, okay, Florida's not getting 600, 700 yards every game here. So there does have to be a delicate balance of the passing yards if you're really excited for Lagway in the running yards. So, I mean, some games are going to be different too. I do think, as you said, there going to be some games where they're going to run and lean on the run game a bit, and then as you said, I do love your point of and I think this is why I'm excited too, of the having to rely on Lagway. I'm looking at it this way, Will. We get to rely on Lagway.
What, you mean the Graham Mertz experience didn't give you the confidence that we could just rely on the quarterback?
I was a Graham Mertz fan, but
I mean, look, I respect what Mertz did for the organization. Yeah. You weren't winning. You weren't getting to the playoff with Mertz as your quarterback. And the optimism this year, because of the offensive line, because of the guys on defense who are coming back, all that sort of stuff is true. And I think Florida's going to be better on both sides of the ball. But let's be honest, the optimism comes because of the guy that got pulling the trigger. And
here we go. We'll stick with the run game, and maybe in relation to this, any running back averaged 15 carries a game. We stick with this one every year too. No running back did back in 2022. Johnson had 9 carries or 100. About 9 a game with 115 total carries. ETN also had about 9 on 118 total carries. Very even during Billy Napier's first year. In 2023, Montreal had 12.6. ETN had 12, so very even again. And then, of course, you go to last season. Montreal Johnson, 10 a game. Ball had 10 a game. Jackson, about 7 a game. So no running back hit 15 carries a game last season. I do think one of them get it this year. I do think one. It's won't be by much, because it hasn't happened. But I do think, as deep as they are with those two, and I know that, and Florida will use a third back, and they'll use it quite often. But with Webb getting hurt, and I'm not trying to, shy away from Katie Daniels all that much, but I do think there might be more reliance on the top 2 guys than there has been in years past. So that's why I do have one of them gets over 15 carries a game.
So I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure I've picked over for this the last 2 years.
And mainly because it has not hit yet.
Well, 2 years ago, I was like, oh, well, ETN, he's clearly the guy who's superior to Montreal Johnson. It'll lead in that direction. 50-50. And then I was like, oh, well, last year we were like, oh, well, Montreal Johnson's going to be the bellwether. He's going to be the guy who goes in there, and you'll have some guys behind him, them, but
Yeah.
what do we really have? Nah, equal carries amongst all three. So I refuse to fall for this again until Napier proves me wrong. With Montrell Johnson leaving, I completely understand the question. But
Yeah.
the days of me dreaming of that 27 carry, 246 yard
That's
performance
not happening.
until I actually see one, I think there are opportunities to do that, but it's like, it's not as though they wait for a guy to get the hot hand and then go, oh, we're going to ride that guy. They literally switch them one series, the next series, one series, the next series, all season long. And so I struggle to see where they're going to get 15 carries a game, other than the fact that I do expect them to be ahead more often this year. Like, some of the reasons they haven't been able to get to 15 carries a game is because they're 17-17 in Napier's time. Like, they've had to chuck the ball by the time the fourth quarter comes around in order to stay in most of these games. So I get why someone would think they're going to be over 15. I think that there is going to be, especially in some games when they get ahead, a desire to just sort of get out of there, assuming that they get ahead. And I think there's going to be an opportunity to sort of put their stamp on the physical nature of the team. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I've said it all off season. Like, when you have a Maserati, you want to drive the Maserati. And I know that Billy Napier is the coach who you absolutely know is wearing tighty whities, but I just expect him to let that Maserati out of the garage enough to where they don't get to 15 carries a game for either running back.
All right, there we go. We'll keep it on offense. So let's go wide receiver. Any wide receiver, 65 catches. And I know that number sounds high, but you go back to 2023, Ricky Pearsall had 65. Trey Wilson had 61. So he almost had two receivers reach 65. So, of course, you're deep at wide receiver this year. Trey Wilson comes back, of course. Last season, you had Elijah Badger with only 37. DK had 36. So, that was a big change in 2023, having two of them, Pearsall and Wilson, at 65, 61, and you had Badger and DK, 37, 36. So that was in 12 games last year. So it's tough to see 65, Will. I mean, maybe going to your point of opening up the offense more and Lagway throwing more. But this is a deep room. I see maybe a top guy hovering around that 50 mark, but there's just so many options here. Look, and I may have to bring this number down if we go to another season with a receiver not getting 65. But with Lagway at quarterback, I think it's certainly there's an opportunity there. But I'm going to hover for the top guy, whoever that might be, J. Michael Sturdivant, Trey Wilson, maybe one of the freshmen, maybe a surprise Tank Hawkins, T.J. Abrams types. I can't see any more than 50.
Yeah, I mean, this is really hard. So only 43 guys got to 65 catches last year, only 2 in the SEC. And so the 2 guys in the SEC was Kevin Coleman at Mississippi State and Andrew Armstrong at Arkansas. What do they have in common? Both of those teams were behind a lot, and they had significantly limited options. And so I'm hoping that Florida has neither of those problems.
Good point, because in 2023, when Pearsall and Wilson were that high, Florida was fighting back, and fighting back a lot.
Yeah, very limited options behind a lot, those sorts of things. And so could they find a guy with 65 catches? Sure.
Yeah.
A lot of those little shovel passes to the wide receiver that get counted, like, that's part of the reason why Wilson got to 60 a couple of years ago, right? And there, Wilson didn't play the whole season then either. And so if he plays a full 12, there's a possibility that those, 3 or 4 of those a game get you 6 or 7 catches a game pretty easily if you do it that way. But again, I think one of the things is that because no one has separated themselves, like, there's no like clear Ricky Pearsall coming into this year where you go, that guy is the guy who's differentiated himself. I think what it means is it's going to, and because I think Lagway's development is sort of now inclined towards find the open guy, right? Whether it's dumping off the running back, whether it's the tight end, whether it's they come up in man and you got the deep shot. And again, I said I expect this completion percentage to go up 4, 5, 6 percentage points, but I don't expect him to complete 70% of his balls, which also means that, some of those deep shots, you average, 11 yards a throw, but that means you're missing a couple of the deep ones every once in a while, right? Because the deep ones go for 30, 40, 50 yards. And so I this is not a ball control offense. If you ask me LSU, I'd say, yeah, I think they'll be over 65. Somebody will be over 65 catches because they throw a bunch of little dump offs for first downs on third down. They go 92 or 93 plays in a game against Florida and throw the ball 60 something times. But, it doesn't amount to much on the offensive side of the ball. I think Florida's the exact opposite, where, you're going to have a lot of guys who have 3 catches for 162 yards and a touchdown. You're going to go, wow, that guy had a really good game, even though he only touched the ball 3 times. So I'm going to take the under. Sounds like you are as well. So
yeah,
a lot of balls to spread around.
For sure. And then here we go, Will. Offense, we'll stay here. The last one. This was a hard number for me to go with, too. 33 points per game. And I raised it from 30. 30's kind of been our number. But I think we expect this offense to be taking steps. So I think it was obvious we were going to take the over from 30. So maybe I should go even higher than 33. You had 29.5 for the Gators in 2022, Napier's first year, 28.4 in 2023, and then last season, 28 points per game in 12 games. So over, and it better be. So I'm putting 6 more points on the board, Will. I think over the 30, I'm going 34 points per game, and I think that might be a little conservative. But setting it at 33, I'll hit 34.
So when Florida in 2021 or in 2019, Florida scored 33 points. Then Kyle Trask really took a step forward. They scored 39.8. Trask leaves, they dropped to 30.7. And those are basically the same offenses, same type of running game, all that sort of stuff, right? And Trask obviously played a little bit in 2019 as well. But that 8 to 9 points is kind of what an elite quarterback gets you. I got Florida scoring 38 points a game this year. I think, again, I'm all in on Lagway.
Yeah,
I think that guy is going to be the best quarterback in the SEC. I think he might be the best quarterback in the country. I think he's probably going to be in New York, assuming that Florida's defense doesn't completely faceplant. And I got him at 38. I think Florida's going to have an offense that we look at and go, this is really fun to watch. Like, it's been a long time since it's been this fun to watch. And, I think the offense is going to be the thing. Like, I have an article in the preseason magazine that talks about the hill to climb. And the point is that going from 5-7 to 8-5 really doesn't require much of it. Like, it requires significant progress on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, but you're talking 2-3 points per game in either direction. And, all of a sudden you're in position to win some of those games rather than the games that you lost in previous years. To go from 8-5 to 10-2, that's a big change. You need a big change. And so the question becomes, if you're going to pick that, you're going to have to get there. And I think the main difference for Florida is going to come on offense. So I have the over 38 points per game coming from Read and Reaction on this one.
Yeah, like I said, I thought I was probably being conservative with the number and my pick of 34. So I might bump it up, but I'll stick with it there. I hope it's higher than that. Let's go to the other side. And we'll stick with points per game for the defense. 21 points per game, Will. Over, under. I'll let you go first on this one.
So, I think I have over. I think the defense they gave up 23.1 points per game last year, is 44th in the country. 21 points is a top 20 unit. Florida does have a difficult schedule, and if Lagway is able to score in bunches, offenses are going to be playing catch up. And so I think the combination of both of those things, I think they improve, but 22 feels about right. A little bit better than last year, but not quite where you need to be to have like a truly elite defense. And so that's sort of where I think they're going to end up. I think we're going to look and say it's more fun to watch. I think it feels different. Like, it's not just this up and down the field, like you can't get off the field type of stuff. But, they're going to give up some points too. And I think given some of the teams they're going to play over the course of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if they have a couple of games where it really does turn into a track meet. So I have Florida 22 points a game, but that the defense is going to feel a little bit different.
Okay. I'm going 20. So we're splitting it. It was at 20, 21. That was the over-under. You going 22. I'm going 20. So I'll go 1 point under there. Going back to last year, LSU, Ole Miss, FSU, Tulane only gave up an average of 13 points those games there. So, but I do like your point about, hey, this offense is where we want it to be. And like how we've seen Florida have to fight back so many times in the first few years under Billy Napier. Hopefully offenses are doing that at the same time, trying to keep up with this Gator offense. So good point there. But, an improved defense, I do think they will take another step, and they get some new quarterbacks to face at the same time this season. So I think that's what will get them there to 20. Well, one of your favorite ones, sacks. I think this was probably been your biggest bugaboo throughout. Even when we were going old Todd Grantham style back in the day, this was the one where it just kept getting over and over and over, and then I think when you finally did go over, it was when it went the opposite
I've
way.
never picked this one right, ever. So
38 sacks last season. What you got, Will?
So
What was? My bad. Over under. We usually set it at 30. I'm raising it to 32 because of the 38 they had last year.
So I'm taking the under because I've been wrong about this every single year. And so if I'm going to be wrong about it again, let's be wrong when it makes me happy. I actually think Florida's pass rush is going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll get to some of the picks on game changers and that sort of stuff in a little bit, and you'll understand why I take the under with a little bit of tongue in cheek here. But look, I think pressure causes turnovers. Havoc causes turnovers. Florida in wins last year got a ton of havoc. In losses got almost none. I think Ron Roberts' defense specifically is not really designed to get a ton of sacks. Like, they're not blitzing a ton. At least they weren't last year when he took over, which means your front four has to dominate to get there. Do I think they have three guys who are going to be in that 8 to 9 sack range? I think that's probably pretty unlikely. So I'll take the under, even though I think that really, again, it's sort of what I said earlier. I think Florida's going to give up some points, but that's going to be in service of sort of protecting some of the leads that they've got. And so, it's going to feel different. Like, you're still going to feel like the defensive line has more control, certainly, than they did earlier last season, but I don't think they're going to get to 32 sacks.
I'm going to play to your game a bit where teams have to be fighting back a little bit. So I think it's going to give them even more chances to get some sacks. And I'm a big fan of this edge group, this defensive line too. So I'm not sure of an exact number here. I'm going to go over. Maybe they repeat 38 again. But that was a high number. And like you said, it came with that raise of play as the season went on. We saw the defense come along. Part of that was because they were getting havoc, were getting the pressure. So I'm just going to go with 38 again, just to go over, and they repeat the number from last year. Let's go to turnovers. I think this was tricky because this is one of those stats that can vary so much year to year. 22 in year one, and then only 7 in 2023, and then back to 2022 or back to 22 again last year. So I'm just kind of going to pick a number that feels good here, Will. 17 turnovers, over or under 17 turnovers for the Gators defense. I'll go over with 20.
Okay. What's your logic here?
Havoc, causing pressure. I think kind of like what we saw with Nuss and Jackson Dart last year, getting to him, affecting the quarterback. I like this linebacker group as well. I think they'll be more involved in stopping the run game, so maybe some more fumbles as well. So I think they'll repeat with the turnovers again.
All right, that's interesting. I've got the under. Florida was top 10 in turnovers last year, cost per game, but 42% of those came from fumbles. So 0.8 of the 1.9 turnovers per game came from fumbles. Those tend to be fluky. The ball ends up on the ground. Pretty much every time the ball was on the ground last year, it felt like Florida fell on it. And those are usually 50-50 propositions. So that usually drops a little bit. And I think the more important thing, and we'll talk about this on the next category as well, the more important thing is, it matters to win the turnover battle, but the reality is that Florida's defense was terrible 3 years ago when you had them when they were at 22 turnovers. Yeah. They were terrible when they had 7 turnovers, and then they were pretty good last year when they had 22. I think the things we're talking about in terms of pressure, havoc, all that stuff is more important. Like, does the quarterback feel uneasy is less important than, especially with this defense, where you're really kind of playing bend but don't break and then hoping the defense makes a mistake. Those sorts of things, I don't know if the turnovers are as critical, because the whole defense, at least last year, was designed to prevent the big play. So, I don't think they'll get to 17, but, if they do, it'll be because they have like 6 against LSU.
I like it. I forgot to tell you, Will, I got rid of the third down one. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I knew we were going to be running long, so I knew I was going to save some time somewhere. So unless you want to go with it.
I'm good.
Okay.
You're the podfather, man. You tell me what you want to do. We go from there.
Let's go to the superlatives here, Will. Let's go ultimate game changer for each side of the ball. I did well with this one last year, claiming Elijah Badger. I thought he was a pretty good game changer down the field at receiver for the Gators. Lagway is obvious, so okay, everybody gets him. So I'm going Jaden Ball. I want to go receiver again, but I'm having a hard time deciding which one. So I'm going to go Jaden Ball. I like Jacoby Jackson as well. I think you could go him if you really wanted to. So I think the game changer for me, I'm going Jaden Ball. Give me some more of those home run type of runs that he used to seal the win over LSU last year. I shared the stat earlier. Since I got it here, and I'm talking about Jaden Ball, Florida shared some notes today. So last season, Jaden Ball ran 102 times for 520 yards in the final 7 games, 74.3 yards per game, racking up 317 yards after contact, 61% of them. 427 of Ball's team-leading 673 rushing yards came after contact. So 63.4% of his rushing yards came after contact. I know he's got that in him. I want to see more of the home run style, and that's where I'm going to call him the ultimate game changer.
So I'm going Trey Wilson. I think he's been forgotten a little bit in all the discussion about Sturdivant and Dallas Wilson and all the freshmen we got coming in and all that sort of stuff. I think Wilson is a guy who, until he got hurt last year, was the guy they were relying on early in the season. He busts that long play against Samford, and then that's sort of it for the entire year. Now, obviously, he needs to stay healthy. That's been something that's been a bugaboo along the way for him. But I think he's the best receiver on the team, assuming that he can stay healthy. And so, I think he does that this year. And I think from a game-changing perspective, Wilson is the guy who has the wiggle to get open underneath to allow DJ Lagway to convert the third down, to then allow him to have the opportunity to go deep. And so,
So what you're telling me is third down conversion Trey Wilson, first down bomb to somebody else the very next play.
To the guy I'm going to have as breakout player on offense coming up next.
Okay.
So, so I take Wilson. I think Wilson is a critical part of what they do. I think, and look, if the guys on the outside have to command a double team, then having Wilson on the inside becomes a huge part of it. But, in the magazine 2 years ago, we had an entire section committed to how Florida was using Trey Wilson in multiple ways on offense. And that all went away when he went down. And one of the ways they were using him is they were using Montreal Johnson as a lead blocker and throwing like pitches to Wilson to get him to the outside. They were isolating him on linebackers on third downs because they had him in the backfield. A lot of those plays where they throw it out to the tight end on sort of the short little route out into the flat, they had modified the offense to have Trey Wilson being the guy catching that ball. And it's a hell of a lot more effective when you run the play action. And now you've got DJ Lagway who can run the ball. He can dump it off to Trey Wilson, who can then also take the ball around the edge. Or, hey, maybe you sneak somebody out as everybody comes up to then guard Wilson. So even as a decoy, I think he works in that capacity. So, you think about Kadarius Toney a few years ago in 2020, there were all those sort of highlights. Like, there were some deep passes and things like that. Mm-hmm. But the stuff that would really impress you would be when he would just put the linebacker in a blender, and then the guy would completely break his ankles, and all of a sudden Toney's wide open. Wilson doesn't quite have that, but he's got that wiggle in a way that some of these other guys don't. I think he's going to be somebody who's key for Lagway being more accurate underneath.
All right, we'll go to defense too, but between YouTube and X, 850 strong, Will. So I mean, Gator Nation's ready, man.
I appreciate everybody coming in and
Yeah.
watching us tonight. Everybody's ready for the game.
Monday nights are Gator podcast heaven. I know, Stadium and Gale has a show. High Top has. I mean, it's just it's football season. It's football season. I just go to the other side of the ball right here. Ultimate game changer. This was tricky for me, Will, because if he gets the chances, and I don't mean because of injury, but because I think he's going to prove enough where they're not going to throw at him. But I'm going to go Devin Moore. I think he's going to be a great cover corner. And if teams throw at him, he's going to make them pay with some big plays. We've seen the ball. When he's had the ball in his hands through interceptions, usually pretty good return happens after that. So I think there's a lot of ways to go with this in Game Changer. I almost wanted to go with somebody up front. But I'm going Devin Moore, taking a chance on him being healthy for sure with this one. But as I said earlier, don't want to take injuries in too much of an account here. I was going to let the season play out. But I think he's going to prove to be really good. Will teams try to stay away from him? Maybe so. And that might limit my game-changing ability here. But I'm going to go Devin Moore.
So I'm a little bit. So Devin has burned me the last couple of years because I've picked him. So maybe I'm biased because he's friends with my nephew. So every once in a while I get a text from Joseph telling me what's going on down there. But I think so. I have, and this is a good or bad game changer pick.
Ooh.
I had Jordan Castell because I think if you're playing bend but don't break, your safeties have to be a strength. And the last 4 games in 24, Castell and Bryce Thornton were really good. Early in the season, Castell wasn't that great, and Thornton didn't play very much. So I think either Castell or Thornton you could pick here, but I think Castell's play is going to dictate the success of the defense. So, I'm picking the offense to be the thing that drives the Florida machine this year. So I don't think the defense is necessarily going to be like awesome, but if the defense takes a step to be awesome, it's going to be because Jordan Castell takes the leap that we all thought he might have been ready to take after his true freshman season. And if he can take that step, then, I think there's an opportunity here for Florida to maybe take a bigger step on defense than I'm predicting.
Well, let you continue on. Breakout player for offense.
Tank Hawkins. I think 10 catches last year. That's kind of modest, but it does suggest the ability to crack a lineup that was pretty deep overall. When you think about it, at the wide receiver position, wasn't like there were a bunch of injuries there and gave him an opportunity to sort of step in. He has plus speed, and we know where Lagway likes to throw. And so, you think about some of the stuff that they're going to try to do. Lagway, really, one of the things that's impressed me ever since he was in high school is even on flood concepts, he's looking deep, intermediate, shallow, rather than shallow, intermediate, deep. And who's going to be running that deep route? I think it's going to be Tank Hawkins out there running it quite a bit. So I think we're going to see some big plays from him, especially early this year. But I think there's going to be a couple where, like I said, you're going to have those games where you got one reception, but it's going to be 80 yards. And I think we're going to see 3, 4, 5 of those where it's like big plays to a guy like Hawkins, and he's not going to get pulled down at the 1 yard line if the ball's laid into his hands. So looking forward to seeing that.
I'm going at the receiver spot too. I'm going to go freshman to break out, either VB3 or Dallas Wilson, but I'm going to lean VB3 because he's been available and will be available early in the season. I think Dallas Wilson will miss some time, against LIU, maybe USF. Maybe he's back for that, but I do not expect Dallas Wilson to be out there this week. So I think plenty of VB3 early on in the season, and him being available. I'm going to give it to him to kind of be that breakout player. And I think Dallas Wilson will have a role too here for this breakout player role, but I think it'll be later in the season. And then also watch out for VB3 on special teams. I know I said offense, but I think he punt return, kick return, and Nick has kind of talked about it on the panel last night and the Florida Victoria message boards about how much VB3 is being used as kick returner, punt returner. So I think watch out for that role of it as well. But big VB3 fan, and hard to decide between him and Dallas Wilson. But him being injured and available, that's the route I'm going to go. So I just think when Trey Wilson needs a breather, or to with the injury history, maybe limit him in some ways, because I think you have confidence that VB3 can do a lot of the same things. I think he'll break out.
I'm here for it, man. Let's 6 breakout receivers this year. Let's see it.
On defense, come on. It's just I'm buying in the hype. I tweeted about it. Give me all the stock. I'm Jaden Woods. I just think it's hard for it is hard for me to buy into the true freshman breakouts on defense in that role. But I just think and Will, this goes to another point that we made earlier. Trying to pick out breakout players, it is a little bit different this year because this is an established team. So you have to go down the depth chart a little bit for breakout players. So I'm going true freshman Jaden Woods.
So I'm going LJ McCray.
Okay.
I think if you
It might take a little bit. It might take a little bit.
Well, it's really interesting because if you look at Andrew Ivins from 24/7, his breakdown of McCray, literally it's like it's a 5-star recruit who needs a developmental year, but also projects as a first-round NFL pick. And I go, all right, he's had his developmental year. Now it's time. Now it's time to see that come to fruition as somebody who can start winning some of those one-on-one battles on the edge. And again, I don't necessarily think that, day one, he's going to be like, this elite pass rusher coming off the edge. But I think as you get into like game 5, game 6, game 7, especially as you start seeing attrition, because you are going to see attrition on both the defense and offensive lines in the SEC.
Well, I mean, him too right now. I mean, I don't expect him to play till LSU game, maybe.
Well, but that's what it's important.
Yeah.
We're talking about.
He can still be breakout player in that. Yeah.
I have thought all offseason that he's a key to what they're going to have to do. That the return of Banks and the return of Sapp meant that they had the baseline of what was necessary in order to be good on defense, but that they need one more guy who can pass rush off the edge. And so whether that's Jaden Woods, whether that's LJ McCray, whether that's George Gums, like whoever that is, they need to find somebody. And I just look at it and say, Florida doesn't have a lot of guys on that team that you go, that guy projects to be a first-round draft pick. And so if I'm going to take somebody as a breakout player and put stock in somebody, that's where I'm going to go. So hopefully he can obviously start slow if he's not out there till the LSU game. But by the time we get to those games at Ole Miss and then the Tennessee game, the Florida State game by the end of the year, start to put his stamp on the defense.
All right, moving forward here. Best new face, and I say transfers or freshmen when I say new face. Well, not a lot of transfers to pick from. Very small transfer class. I'm going J. Michael Sturdivant here on this one. I think he's going to be the best friend of one of those, or not one, a lot of deep balls from one DJ Lagway. So that's what they brought him in here for. Now he's moved around a bit in fall camp, playing all 3 positions. Florida likes for their receivers to be able to play both outside and inside. But I thought he was brought here to be that downfield threat, and I think him and DJ Lagway is going to be a beautiful pairing. And that best new face is going to be J. Michael Sturdivant.
So is this category we pick someone who is a true freshman and a transfer, or just one?
Just a new face.
Okay.
It could be a transfer or a true freshman.
Yeah, so I was sort of between two. I think Drake Stubbs at safety is going to be somebody who, as a true freshman, going to be pretty high on the depth chart, especially early on, going to get some time out there in some of these early games, and we'll see what he can do and might have the potential there. I'm interested to see, we don't talk about special teams very often, but certainly special teams improved a lot last year. We've got Tommy Doman coming in as a transfer punter from Michigan. He's a guy who he's not going to be rattled after he punted for a national champion. And, I know De La Torre was on here the other day, but he's the, thinking of him when I'm looking at a punter. But, look, those are some pretty big shoes to fill, and it is a weapon. And so when I look at the depth chart, Sturdivant and some wide receiver are the guys who are going to crack the 22. And then there's nobody on the defensive side of the ball who's brand new, who's going to crack the top 11. And so you got to go somewhere. So it actually, honestly, as I was looking at it, this was a place where I actually thought about picking Vernell Brown from a special teams perspective, from a kick or a punt return perspective, because it's been a long time since Florida's had anybody back there who wasn't just like, hey, we're going to put somebody back there who's sure-handed. And, every once in a while, maybe we get like a 10 or 15 yard return because there's somebody you could take to the house. But again, I'll go with Tommy Doman, punter, as the new face.
Okay, season prediction time. Will, I know you've already done yours, so I'll start with yours. Well, I guess has it changed? Remind everybody what your prediction was in the magazine, and then if it's changed at all. Yeah.
So my prediction in the magazine was 9-3, and I had Florida earning a playoff spot. The only thing that has changed is that I had Florida earning the playoff spot against UNLV because I wanted the Dan Mullen Florida matchup there. And I was trying to find something interesting to pick from the non-Power 4 conferences. So that's probably not going to happen now that we've seen what UNLV brought out there against Idaho State this weekend. So I have Florida going 9-3. Earning a playoff spot, hopefully against Penn State in Happy Valley, so that they're right up by me, and I can go check out a game up at Beaver Stadium, as well as watch my Gators play up there. I think you look at like Pythagorean expectations that have to do with like points per game versus points allowed. The 38-22 puts Florida solidly at 9 wins, based on what I picked for offense and defense. If the offense drops a little bit, like you got to get down to like 31 points per game to get down to 8 wins. So I think they're pretty solidly at 9. I think there's an opportunity for them to get to 2. I would lean closer to 10-2 than I would to 8-4. But I've got them at 9-3 and sneaking into the playoff in the back end.
All right. So I'm usually, I do have the rule. If I'm truly torn, I put the orange and blue glasses on, and let that make that my decision. So I was truly torn between 9-3, 10-2. I got 10-2. Will losses
right
on the road at A&M and at Ole Miss later in the season. I just think the kind of weird because I got the big win at LSU and at Miami back to back, but the road Billy Napier still scares me a bit. So and then I am so 50-50 on the Texas game, but as I said, if I'm 50-50 now, I put the orange and blue glasses on. That'd be the difference maker for me. I think Florida gets the win over Texas at home, follows that up with a loss at A&M, and then later on in the season at Ole Miss. So it's hard to predict. I mean, 10-2, there could be a different combination to that, of course. 9-3, a different combination to that, of course. Hard to pick the exact wins and exact losses, but that's where I'm at. Certainly torn on it.
So first off, that won't be a big win against LSU because they'll be 1-2 after that game.
It will be a bit. I still think they finish the season with a winning record, and Billy Napier is yet to beat a team that finishes the season with a winning record. A road game of a team that finishes the season with a winning record. So
hot take. I don't think Brian Kelly survives the year.
Ooh.
And and then I got Miami. So those 4 I got wins. I got a loss at Texas. I think the A&M game is one that I'm going to be interested in. The Georgia game is interesting because you've got that Mississippi State bye back to back, which means you get 2 straight bye weeks heading into that Georgia game, which is kind of interesting. The at Ole Miss is there's going to be some payback there on their mind, and you're going there to Oxford. That'll be interesting. And then the Thanksgiving duo where you got Tennessee and Florida State at home on both ends. Yeah, I mean, I've got him at 9-3. That really is a Napier pick. Like, I think I would take 10-2 if I had more confidence in him as a play caller and in close games, and that he would take this team and really drive forward through its strengths. But I don't know, man. Texas could be really, really good.
Yeah.
But the fact that you got a W there and you've got that one 50-50 says something about what you think about this team. But I mean that is a national championship quality team down there in Austin, and if Florida's getting the win in that one, and if they're 5-0 after that, oh boy,
yeah,
like there's gonna be a lot of talk. Like that's where you cash out your bet on Lagway, whatever you put in.
Yeah,
like cash it out then because you're getting great odds on the cash out at that point.
Yeah. But like I said, I was 50-50, 9-3, 10-2. I let the glasses take over. It's just where I go with it. That's my in-house rule on myself. So and I don't want to sound like I'm riding the fence here, but that's just truly where I am truly torn. 9-3, 10-2 with the team.
That Texas one. So we do a win-loss and toss for the preseason magazine every year.
Yeah.
And so, we're picking do we think it's a win? Do we think it's a loss? Or do we think it's a toss-up? And I would say 2 years ago, it was like 9 games were toss-ups, right? It was like 3 definitive losses and then 9 toss-ups, or 7 toss-ups and then 2 cupcakes. And that was sort of the way it looked, just because you didn't know what you were going to get, right? And honestly, Dave, if they beat Texas and go even 9-3, they're in the playoff. I think if they go 9-3, regardless, I think the SEC and the Big Ten have college football by the balls right now.
Yeah.
And any 9-3 team that doesn't get put into the playoff, if it's the bet, like, so last year we were arguing about, sort of inferior out of conference teams versus 3 SEC teams, and the inferior teams got in. I don't think it's going to happen this year, because if it does, I think everybody knows that college football is about to get blown up, and the Big Ten and the SEC are going to own it all. So I think the SEC is going to get the benefit of the doubt, and they should, based on the quality of the teams. But I think the SEC is going to get the benefit of the doubt. So, if you're leaning 10-2, 9-3, and you think that's going to happen, I think you're talking about a playoff game. The difference is at 10-2, you might have a home playoff game.
True.
At 9-3, you're probably going on the road somewhere. Like I said,
Well,
I'm hoping
that was our friend Josh Pate. Florida hosting Georgia in his 8 versus 9 matchup last week.
They're not going to do that. Like, I mean, maybe they would. I don't know. It depends on what the ratings look like, I guess. But, hey, man, Georgia.
You know it would be good.
Man, so that would be a challenge for you, though, Dave. I mean, because.
What would be a challenge?
Well, I mean, staying coherent enough during the football game to be able to observe it and understand what's going on and break it down for all the people afterwards. Like, people would expect like a post-game.
The cocktail party gives me a pretty good training session for that. So
I mean, I suppose, but you're not like broadcasting live from the stadium after that game. I feel like you'd have to like broadcast live from the stadium after a playoff game, which means you'd have to be in condition to broadcast live from the stadium. And I don't know how that would work with Florida Georgia. They'd be pushing all your buttons on that one.
Man.
A Florida Georgia playoff game. Woo boy.
I couldn't imagine. That'd be crazy.
Well, hopefully it's not a Florida Georgia playoff game in Athens, because you need me down there as a bodyguard.
Probably no libations that day.
Hey, you gotta have a good time. You only get 12 of them, Dave. You gotta have a good time.
Yeah, for sure. All right, there we go, Will. Good stuff. A lot of fun. We'll see what these predictions hold. Start Saturday, though, and I know we're all excited for it. So what are we doing next Monday? Are we coming on? It's Labor Day. I mean, I think that's been hit or miss for us in the past. So do we do a Labor Day show or not? But
I mean, my guess is we'll probably be on Tuesday night. Would be the guess, because that's when everybody want to join us.
The Monday night game is not great, but it's still college football. But who is it? TCU and North Carolina? Yeah. Oh, Belichick. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, well, there you go. So is his girlfriend on the sideline? That's going to be the so that is the hazard of like publishing a magazine. Is we published it in like 2 days. So I had UNC having a good season, and then all the stuff with his girlfriend came out like 2 days after we published it. I'm like, oh man, like if I'd known. I will say, out of all the things that I'm like thrilled with for this entire offseason, I don't feel like anything has changed from the stuff that I wrote in May. Like I look at the preseason magazine and I go, I think it's just as relevant today as it was back then, because it's not like we're sitting here going, oh, somebody tore an ACL or somebody separated a shoulder, or
you were able to get it in before the Nico saga
or any of that. Oh my God. like, oh crap. Like I was joking with Nick. I'm like, can you imagine if we were doing a Tennessee preseason magazine? Well, 3/4 of the magazine has to be rewritten. Like we committed like half the magazine to DJ Lagway this year, and for good reason. Man, if he'd have transferred out, it would have been a disaster. So, I'm obviously excited for the season, but I think a big part of that is all the returning guys, all the returning production, all the stuff where we're just like, we know what we're going to get. And then the question is, are there people who can take steps forward? And even guys like Slaughter, where you look at that and say, can he repeat his All-American performance? Mm-hmm. I mean, he was really good 2 years ago too. So it's not like it was like a flash in the pan where you're like, oh, can he do it 2 years in a row? I mean, it really is a matter of just, can he maintain the quality of play that he's established as a player over the course of his career at Florida? And, that's sort of the story for this year is, if these guys can all just maintain what they've done, and if Lagway plays exactly like he did in the games that he started, Florida's competing for a playoff spot, and that's haven't been able to say that around these parts in a while, man.
Excited for it. I mean, it's been a while since we had this much excitement going into a season, so now just live up to it, and that's what we'll be looking for.
It's time, Billy.
It's time.
It's time.
It is time. It is time. Next Monday or Tuesday, Will, you make the call. I don't care either way.
We'll do Tuesday. Let's do Tuesday for
next Tuesday. Next Tuesday night, everybody. We will come back with our. And then it'll be Mondays after that, like our normal traditional Monday nights during the season. So, all right, there we go. There we go. I'll be back on. I'll go give Spun some of these over and unders too. On Wednesday. So he's been doing shows with me on Wednesday. So kind of we'll have a 3-way split there to try to figure out who's right and wrong. So
yeah, well, if he takes under 3,200 yards on Lagway, just tell me he's wrong.
Okay. Sounds good. Will Miles, everybody at Read and Reaction. I just realized I didn't have the names up the whole time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, look at there.
There's still time to get the magazine.
I mean, most people have watched this for years anyway. So, but
I would hope they know who we are.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right, everybody, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Follow us there on social media at Will Miles SEC, at GatorDave_SEC, and that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown.